Welcome to Daily Life Connection. Thank you for joining me again today as we continue to explore Luke chapter 15. Today we're going to begin to look at verse 13, and it says this. It says that not long after that, the younger son got together all he had and set out for a distant country, and there he squandered his wealth in wild living. I think I mentioned yesterday that word is also in one translation called dissolute living, or self-indulgent living, or self-directed living. So this son sets out and heads out and runs looking for life to the full. He wants life to the full. We all do. But he thinks it's found by ignoring the father's rules and regulations and instructions, the way the father has set up living. You see, on the father's estate, the father has set up a way of living that he believes is life to the full. But this younger son thinks, no, I want a life to the full, and I'll do it by self-directed living. Instead of being directed by the father into the ways of living well, he decides that he knows better. He's going to go out and find it himself and find it in his own way. And the father has given him the resources so that he can actually go and do that. And so here he sets out and rebels against the father and pursues life to the full, but in his own terms, in his own way. He really believes it by indulging himself, doing whatever he wants. You know, we all said that probably at one time growing up. When I get older, I'm just going to do what I want to do. I'm not going to have to go to bed when my parents tell me, or I'm not going to have to spend my money the way they say. When I get older, that's that same spirit this younger son had, wasn't it? I'm going to get out from under that, and I'm going to direct my own life, and I will live on my own terms. And you know, didn't Israel do that all through the scriptures? Over and over again, we see them abandoning the principles of God, the instructions of God, and rebelling and deciding they're going to do it their own way. They're going to experience life to the full on their own terms. But, you know, it's not just them. It's us as well. I mean, all of us have done and will continue to do, I'm sure, to some degree, to pursue satisfaction, to pursue love, to pursue acceptance, to have people approve of us. People's approval. Wow, we can squander the things God has given us, the talents and gifts He's given us, just to curry their favor, just to try and get something from them, to experience life to the full, outside of God's ways of being and doing. You know, the psalmist said many times, teach me your way, teach me your way, give me your instructions. They lead me to the path of life. They lead me to life to the full. But this young man has not realized that yet. And like I say, we can become judgmental about it and about people who are rebelling against God and pursuing life on their own terms. But the reality is we need to hold up the mirror, don't we? And say, you know, how today have I pursued or will I pursue people's acceptance and love and thrills and pleasure and joy and satisfaction outside of God. David said in Psalm 44, he said, I will go to God, my exceeding joy. He had learned that real joy, real life to the full, is found in being close to God, to being in His presence, to be in relationship with Him. It's not found through self-directed, self-indulgent living. But then there's the older son, and we read in verse 31, the father says, you've always been with me, you've stayed with me. He didn't run, he stayed. But, you know, he looked for life to the full by earning the father's favor. He thought if he could just perform well enough, if he could be valuable enough to the father's estate. You remember what he said? He said, I've slaved for you, I've served you, I've worked hard for you. He was saying, I've brought value to this farm, and yet you haven't recognized that. His service and his obedience and his compliance to the Father's instructions. I'm trying to do it your way. I'm working really hard to do it your way. But it did not bring him that life to the full either, did it? So both of these sons really were rebellious, or both of these sons, no, they didn't understand the heart of the Father. They didn't understand the Father's instructions were for their own good. In Deuteronomy, we read that where God says, everything I've taught you, every instruction I've given you, it's for your good. It's so that you can live life well. You can live it whole and full and free and with joy. And that's what God is saying to us today as well. He said, through Christ and what he's done for us, all these things are yours. And it's not about either running away and doing it in your own way, and it's not about trying really hard to be good, to be righteous, to earn my favor, to earn these gifts. You remember back in verse 11, it said, verse 12, the Father already has given us everything. He'd given these boys everything. There was nothing more that he could give them other than his relationship, which was by far the most valuable thing that he possessed. So here we are, these two sons. One runs and rebels, one stays and becomes religious, performance-oriented, and neither of them are experiencing the real joy of relationship with the Father. They're not experiencing life to the full as he had intended it for them. Well, let's think about that today. Which do we tend to do? Which am I? Am I a runner or a religious? Am I a rebellious or religious in seeking life to the full? Let's ask ourselves that today and ask the Spirit to reveal those areas in our hearts where we try to do one of those two things. And we'll talk again tomorrow. God bless.